Hello there, watching Al24 Midnight News coming to you live from Algiers. And to the headlines. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune emphasized the government's complete support and participation in any industrial investment initiatives that generate income and jobs. As warring sides fail to abide by ceasefire agreement, the White House announced Thursday that it will impose a set of sanctions in Sudan, including visa restriction. And in the Middle East, during a usual raid by the Zionist forces in Palestine, nearly 33 Palestinians in different areas across the occupied West Bank were detained. Warning that the current situation hindered both countries' processes of Euro-Atlantic integration, U.S. Secretary of State called on Kosovo and Serbia to take immediate steps to reduce tensions. Hello there and welcome. I'm your host Abdulrahim Kashour, and starting from Algeria, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and the Minister of National Defense, chaired a meeting of the Supreme Security Council devoted to studying the general situation in the country and on the borders. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune emphasized the government's complete support and participation in any industrial investment initiatives that generate income and jobs. In a letter to the President of the Algerian Council for Economic Renewal, Kamal Moula, President Tebboune congratulated the Algerian Civital complex on the completion of oilseed crushing complex, urging that this industrial achievement serve as a model for successful, productive economic institutions that can contribute to the national economy through what they offer of exceptional value to the national industry. The Minister for Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has confirmed that Algeria's candidacy for non-permanent membership in the Security Council is natural extension of its role and commitment to the strengthening international cooperation in order to build a peaceful, stable and prosperous world order. Also, Mr. Ahmed Attaf emphasized Algeria's role in the regional contacts within the Arab world, Mediterranean and international dimensions. Still with the Foreign Ministry's matter, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf exchanged in a phone call with his Canadian counterpart Melanie Joly views on range of regional issues, especially the outcomes of the Arab Summit in Jeddah, developments in the Sahel region, as well as prospects for strengthening international support for the Republic of Mali. The Canadian minister invited her Algerian counterpart to pay a visit to Canada in order to continue the interpolitical dialogue and to review ways and prospects for strengthening cooperation relations between the two countries. The Algerian Ministry of Defense announced the organization of national operation to burn and destroy drugs of all kinds in Ramshi town in Tlemcen state, western part of the country. The ministry, in a statement, revealed that the operation included the destruction and the burning of more than 2 loads of treated weed and about 3 kilos of cocaine, which were seized by the army and security units, as well as the Algerian customs services.
As part of a national operation, quantities of drugs and cocaine were destroyed. These quantities are the fruit of operations carried out by the People's National Army and the judicial units of the National Gendarmerie and the National Police as part of the fight against these toxic substances.
To a different matter now, in Libya, the President of the Presidential Council, Mohammed Al-Manfi, discussed with the UN envoy to Libya, Abdullah Batili, developments in the work of the 6+6 Joint Committee to prepare and complete electoral laws leading to the achievement of free, transparent and inclusive election for all during the current year. In Africa still, the White House stated on Thursday that it will impose a set of sanctions on people who are prolonging the violence in Sudan because warring parties have failed to comply with the ceasefire deal. The U.S. is imposing visa restrictions on individuals in Sudan who are responsible for Sudan's democratic transition. According to the State Department, these individuals include officials from the warring Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces, as well as leaders from the former Omar al-Bashir regime. In Africa still, Senegalese President Macky Sall on Wednesday said his government would ensure peaceful, free and transparent elections next year following weeks of fresh opposition unrest. He also welcomed members of various parties, religious leaders and civil society groups to the start of a multi-day national dialogue aimed at easing tensions and fostering dialogue.
L'échéance électorale présidentielle de février 2024.
The presidential deadline of February 2024 imposes itself as a subject of dialogue. I would like to say here that the government will take all the necessary measures to organize a peaceful, democratic, free and transparent election, as our country knows so well how to do, including recently in January and July 2022.
Chaque bien privé ou public saccagé.
Another challenge that deserves consultation is the upcoming exploitation of our gas and oil resources. All of this challenges us as a nation beyond our differences and our divergences. It is our duty to gather and discuss our shared concerns while respecting our democratic achievements. Respect for the rules that underpin the Senegalese nation, the rule of law, the republic and its institutions, respect for the defense and security forces, respect for public property and private property.
In the Middle East, the occupation army has arrested 33 Palestinians, including 23 from the town of Toko in the Beit Lahem governorate on Thursday. In a statement, the Palestinian Prisoners Club said the occupation forces have arrested at least 33 citizens since Thursday morning. The arrests are spread over most governorates. In addition, on Thursday, the occupation forces and settlers closed the entrance to the Palestinian village of Laban al-Sharqiyya at Nablus, or rather in Nablus, northern West Bank, and hindered the movement of residents. Now, in Europe, tensions escalate between Russia and Ukraine as the Russian Ministry of Defense claims to have repelled an attempt to Ukrainian invasion of its territory in Belgorod region. The clashes involved tanks and soldiers, with Russian forces successfully thwarting 3 attacks, according to the ministry. Hassan Barkan.
The Russian Ministry of Defense has announced the successful repulsion of 3 Ukrainian attacks in Belgorod region, aimed at infiltrating Russian territory. Russian units, supported by the Air Force and artillery, confronted what they described as an attempted Ukrainian invasion of a border area, involving tanks and dozens of soldiers. Spokesman for the Russian Defense Ministry, Igor Konashenkov, provided details of the operation.
The Russian armed forces, along with units of Border Guard and other units of the Federal Security Service, thwarted a new attempt by the Kiev regime to carry out a terrorist act against the civilian population in the city of Chabienko, in the Belgorod region, after intensive bombing of civilian targets in the region by Ukrainian terrorist formations. The heroic actions of Russian soldiers repelled 3 attacks by Ukrainian terrorist groups.
According to Konashenkov, the Russian army successfully eliminated over 30 Ukrainian terrorists and destroyed significant military equipment on the Ukrainian side of the border.
More than 30 Ukrainian terrorists were eliminated, 4 armed fighting vehicles, 1 Grad multiple rocket launcher, and 1 pickup truck were destroyed in the border area on the Ukrainian side.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his unwavering confidence in Russian victory in what he referred to as a special military operation in Ukraine during a video meeting with large families in Russia. He responded to a question about the country's efforts in this operation.
Really, it will be so. As you said, there is no doubt about it because we are defending our land, our people, and our values. There is no doubt here, and there is nothing to talk about.
The situation between Russia and Ukraine remains highly volatile, with escalating confrontation along the border. The Russian Ministry of Defense assertion of repelling a Ukrainian invasion further deepened the divide between the two nations. As tensions continue to rise, the international community closely monitors the developments, hoping for a peaceful resolution to prevent further escalation and loss of life.
Same line of thought, Ukraine's Ministry of Renovation and Infrastructure said on Thursday that UN-brokered Black Sea grain deal export had been halted again because Russia had blocked registration of ships to all Ukrainian ports. A UN spokesman said Russia had informed officials overseeing the initiative that Moscow would limit registrations to the port of Pividinye in Odessa province until all parties agreed to unblock the transit of Russian ammonia.
The Russian Federation has informed the JCC of its decision to limit registrations to the port of Yuzhny Pivzdeny as long as ammonia is not exported, and currently it's not. Since May 24th, the number of inspection teams at the JCC has been reduced from 3 to 2. Our fear, as outlined in what I said, is to see a spike in global food prices, to see volatility. I mean, we saw the positive impact on the monthly food index once the initiative was signed and working, and now things are slowing down.
On Thursday, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky came in Moldova for the European Political Community Summit, where he was met by Moldovan President Sandu and 50 other European leaders. Zelensky praised Sandu for receiving Ukrainian refugees throughout the conflict during a welcoming ceremony in Belbovaca, Moldova. He also emphasized the necessity of Ukraine's membership in NATO and warned of potential Russian aggression in other regions of Europe.
Ukraine keeps Moldova safe today, and we are very, very grateful for that. Moldova respects the sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity of Ukraine and its internationally recognized borders. Moldova supports the peace formula that you proposed, Mr. President. And of course, we support the initiative to create the special international tribunal to deal with those who are committing crimes of aggression in Ukraine.
We spoke about our bilateral relations, about, I think, some infrastructure were principal priority projects, and we will sign in the closest future. And I think what is very important, our future in EU, and Ukraine is ready to be in NATO. We are waiting when NATO will be ready to host and to have Ukraine. And I think security guarantees are very important, not only for Ukraine, for our neighbors, for Moldova, because of the Russia and of their aggression in Ukraine and potential aggression for other part of Europe.
In the same line of thought, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that all NATO members agree that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance and that Moscow has no right to object the expansion of the alliance.
And all allies agree that it is for the NATO allies and Ukraine to decide when Ukraine becomes a member. It's not for Moscow to have a veto against NATO enlargement.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg announced that he will visit Ankara in the near future to advance Sweden's request to join NATO after the re-election of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. For his part, the Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström confirmed that his country had fulfilled all the conditions for joining NATO and called on Turkey and Hungary to raise their opposition without delay.
Sweden is now integrating more and more into NATO structures, our military structures, our civilian structures, and several allies also provided bilateral security assurances for Sweden. So it's absolutely inconceivable that there will be any threat or any attack against Sweden without NATO reacting. I will travel to Ankara in the near future, exactly when is not yet decided.
Everything that we undertook to deliver during the Madrid summit is fulfilled, and it is time for Turkey and Hungary to start the ratification of the Swedish membership to NATO. That is the clear message that I will send, and I have already received, before this meeting, clear signs of the commitment and the support that we feel from several of the NATO member states.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urged Kosovan and Serbian leaders Thursday to ease tensions. Blinken warns both sides were putting aspirations of European integration at risk. Washington earlier criticized Kosovo after Prime Minister Albin Kurti moved ahead on installing ethnically Albanian mayors following a boycott of local elections by Serb voters in northern areas where they are the majority.
We call on the governments of Kosovo and Serbia to take immediate steps to de-escalate tensions and renew efforts to implement the EU-led normalization agreements. We support the process of Euro-Atlantic integration for Kosovo and for Serbia, but the current escalation hinders rather than helps the efforts to move in that direction.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said during a meeting with Japan's defense minister Thursday that China's actions were concerning. Austin stressed the importance of communication during a stopover Thursday in Tokyo, calling it unfortunate that his Chinese counterpart is refusing to meet him at an upcoming annual security conference in Singapore, which both men are attending.
As well as future directions.
The second question that you asked was regarding the Chinese declining to meet with me, the Minister of Defense declining to meet with me. I think that's unfortunate, but we're going to continue to do what we are doing in this region and others, and that is to work with like-minded countries who share common values and common goals to continue to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry said Thursday that the United States should stop any form of official exchange with Taiwan under the gaze of trade. This comes as the United States and Taiwan have signed a new trade deal on Thursday. It is the first agreement and a framework for talks called the U.S.-Taiwan Initiative on 21st Century Trade.
China strongly opposes any form of official interaction between China's Taiwan region and countries that have diplomatic relations with China. That includes negotiating or signing any agreement that implies sovereignty and has an official nature. The U.S. move gravely violates the One China principle and the three China-U.S. joint communiques and contravenes the U.S. own commitment of maintaining only unofficial relations with Taiwan.
In USA, a deal allowing the U.S. to borrow more money has moved closer to becoming law, days before the world's biggest economy is due to start defaulting on its debt.
Reserve. Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
The U.S. House of Representatives approved legislation to suspend the government's borrowing limit until early 2025, a step toward averting a Washington political showdown 5 days before the country could run out of money to pay its bills.
Large majority of both Democrats and Republicans in the House passed bipartisan legislation to protect the U.S. economy protect American families, and eliminate the threat of a first-ever default. The bill is now in the Senate, where we begin the process today of passing this legislation as soon as possible. The Senate will stay in session until we send a bill avoiding default to President Biden's desk.
Yeas are 314.
With the vote of late Wednesday, the bill easily passed the House of Representatives despite defections on both Democratic and Republican leaders.
For the first time in quite some time, we'd spend less than we spent the year before. Tonight, we all made history because this is the biggest cut and savings this Congress has ever voted for. And it's not that we're just voting for it. This is going to be law. $2.1 trillion.
Far-right Republican lawmakers had criticized the deal negotiated by Democratic President Joe Biden and Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy for not cutting enough in future government spending, while some progressive Democrats said it trims too much.
Default is not an option, and that means we have to pass this bill. I'm going to have to swallow hard on some parts of it. I'm sure other members say the same thing, but the responsible thing to do for America is to pass it.
Both Democrats and Republicans in the Senate are working to ensure that a bill reaches Biden's desk for his signature this weekend before a default can occur. The measure suspends the government's current $31.4 trillion debt ceiling. Before Wednesday's vote, U.S. stock markets ended the day down a little, with the Dow closing 0.4% lower, while the S&P and Nasdaq both dipped by 0.6%.
Foreign ministers from the BRICS countries kicked off a meeting on Thursday in Cape Town, South Africa. Foreign ministers are expected to discuss during the two-day meeting a wide range of issues, including preparation for the upcoming Leaders Summit, a potential expansion of the group, as well as the trade and economic issues.
Against the backdrop of the West's actions, our countries, together with all global majority states, should actively seek universal joint answers to the challenges of our time. These include attempts to undermine the foundations of collective, equal, and indivisible security, regional conflicts, international terrorism, transnational crime, including the criminal use of modern technologies. In this context, we welcome the holding of a separate media session in the format of BRICS Friends, with the invitation of like-minded countries.
The Embassy of Algeria in Italy, in collaboration with the Italian Association of the Automotive Industry and in partnership with the group Fiat, held an economic forum dedicated to the prospects for the development of car industry in Algeria. Our reporter Nabil Khazini was there and came up with this.
In the capital of Italy's car industry, Turin, around 50 Italian automotive equipment manufacturers and nearly 100 economic operators, along with officials and experts from Algeria and Italy, attended a forum dedicated to the prospects for the development of car industry in Algeria. The forum was an opportunity for the Algerian delegation, led by the Minister of Industry and Pharmaceutical Production, Ali Aoun, to present the investment opportunities in Algeria and especially the outline of the new law on investment.
Algerian-Italian cooperation is constantly improving thanks to the interest expressed by both parties and the good relations that link economic operators of the two countries. The automobile industry is among the fields of industrial cooperation that have been recently identified, including the highly symbolic project of Fiat, which constitutes undoubtedly a brand of confidence between our two countries. In fact, this project, which was prepared in record time, constitutes not only a success story model, but a trigger of a sustained industrial cooperation between our two countries.
The objective now is to establish a real automotive industry in Algeria. The time is so favorable given the improvement of the business climate in Algeria and the recent establishment of the Fiat Group in the city of Oran, which will witness the first made in Algeria Fiat car.
Today, we engaged in a new, efficient and effective style, a real car industry. We can be proud that next December, God willing, we will issue the first locally manufactured car in Algeria.
For the Italians, Algeria is an important partner. The Italian side has shown a strong interest in investing in Algeria.
Meetings like today's one and business forums are very important. Very important because they reflect the interest that Italy attaches to Algeria, but they also allow Algeria to extend the progress achieved and show, above all, the opening that we currently find in Algeria for economic development.
Events such as this one show how serious is Algeria towards establishing a concrete automotive industry with the aim of becoming a hub for car making in Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself and good night.